Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Now, I always say that yes, tech is going to remove traditional job roles, but it's also creating new roles for a digital age. It's probably creating more than it's actually removing. And yes, there is no such thing as a job for life anymore, but we must all adapt to the continuously evolving digital landscape and reinvent ourselves. Now, in a former life, of course, I was an IT manager, but now I create written and audio content. I've future-proofed myself, right? Well, not really, because I keep reading how artificial intelligence is changing the content generation process and even writing its own content. So I wanted to find out more, not just in the name of self-preservation, but how helpful it can be to everyone listening. Now, I love today's conversation. I suspect you're going to too. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to San Francisco, where they're having an even crazier spell of weather than we are here in the UK. So we can speak with Neha Sampat, CEO of Contentstack. And she's going to tell us all about how artificial intelligence is changing the content generation process. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Neha Sampat. I'm the founder and CEO of Contentstack. Contentstack is a company that's changing how organizations deliver digital content to their audiences. We have a modern content management system. We consider it now the world of content experiences. So we like to think of it as a content experience platform.
Now, as someone that produces content for a living, I've got to say I'm nervously optimistic about the future. But how do you think AI is changing the whole content generation process? Because I don't think it can create completely original stories at the moment, but could that change?
Well, interestingly enough, we're already seeing examples where AI is powering content processing, analysis. It's becoming a really crucial part of the content generation process as well. So to answer your question, yes, it's already changing. But I can give you a few examples of how AI is being used in the content world today. One of the ones that I actually think is super interesting is text intelligence and analysis. So if you think about AI being able to actually analyze the tone or the sentiment of content when it's being written, and maybe suggesting if it's suitable for an intended audience. And there are services out there that will do that: language detection, keyword extraction, profanity detection, and essentially tell you, hey, that sentence that you wrote displays anger or displays love, and it helps you decide how you want to continue to write.
And also, how are you seeing natural language processing and natural language generation accelerating that process of content generation? Is there anything you can share around those fields at the moment?
Sure. Yes. So like we talked about, AI is not necessarily generating full stories quite yet, although it's kind of headed in that direction. And natural language processing, natural language detection, which is sometimes called NLP, natural language processing, natural language generation, NLG. These are things that can help accelerate the process of content generation. Some of these areas where AI is already helping is actually doing content translation. So taking content in one language, translating it to another language, or maybe to a locale or to a generation, and potentially providing transcription of video and audio and turning that into content that can actually be legible, usable, adding a tone or a sentiment to that, tagging or creating automatic metadata in content, which is often used for websites and mobile applications and things like that. If you're familiar with tools like Grammarly, doing grammar checks and potentially saying, hey, you might want to say this sentence differently. Protecting your content, making sure that there's trademark protection, checking against things that are out there on the internet or things that are out in the world that have already copyrighted. So a lot of that is happening, and it's helping people to actually generate content more quickly and with some automation.
I must admit, I'm starting to see more and more transcription services as well. So something like this conversation that we're having today, if we have a 20, 30-minute conversation, transcribed, that's 4,000 words that can be repurposed as different forms of content too. That really seems to be gathering pace too, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yes. And that's actually pretty interesting, because if you think about writing, it used to be, you'd grab a typewriter and you'd sit behind it and you'd try to write something. And now if you have a conversation like this, or if you're even a writer who sometimes does better at having a conversation and talking through something, you can record yourself. And that might create something that can turn into a blog post. You just have to go in and make a few tweaks. And then there's actually tools that will layer on top of that and help you make those tweaks in an AI generated fashion.
So the question I've got to ask is, where does Contentstack fit into all this, and how is it using AI to help its customers create those better digital experiences that we're talking about?
Yeah, so from our perspective, the world of content management systems of tomorrow should be AI ready. They have to have something built in that will essentially let AI be a part of the way that content's being generated and delivered. AI has to be easily integrated, and you should be able to use all the best of breed services that are out there to do that. You shouldn't have to be able to just work with only one content management system provider or one company. So we think of everything as very open and flexible. And so Contentstack's the first modern CMS, or the modern content management system that embeds AI into its user experience. And we've integrated with tools and systems like IBM's Watson, Salesforce Einstein, and a company called MonkeyLearn to give Contentstack customers the ability to easily leverage AI to create highly personalized content, digital experiences that go beyond standard demographics and traditional audience segmentation. Actually, while you're using Contentstack, you can integrate with all of these tools that you like to use and use those to help you make your content smarter, better sentiment, easier to generate, faster, and integrated with everything that you care about from an analytics standpoint, and as optimization for your site and all that good stuff.
And you've got some pretty high-profile clients out there as well, such as Miami Heat, Marriott, and Martha Stewart, to name just a few. But do you have any use cases that will help anyone listening anywhere in the world visualize how you're creating those better digital experiences, but also how valuable they are to businesses too?
Sure. Yeah, actually, one of my favorite ones, and this is something that most people can relate to, especially those that are sports fans, is the Miami Heat, actually. And the Miami Heat is one of the most beloved teams in the National Basketball Association, the NBA, here in the U.S. And it's one of those experiences where people think about them as very modern, and they've won tons of awards for their digital mobile app. And that digital mobile app is actually powered by Contentstack. So if you think about what that app is, it's a fan experience app that allows fans to engage both during a game and also while they're at home continuing to be fans. But what's really exciting is when if you're actually going to the arena to attend one of the games, you can use the app to do everything from navigating to the arena, parking at the arena, ticketless entry into the arena, wayfinding to your seat, in-seat ordering, all of the things that you want to do to interact with players and social media and other fans that might be at the arena. That's all powered through Contentstack, through integrations, and within that same digital experience fan app. And what's exciting about that from the Miami Heat's perspective is that they're able to maximize engagement with the fan. And they know what fans like, which beverages or what kind of merchandise they bought and which games they like to go to. And they can push custom offers accordingly, making that experience super personalized, delightful for the fans. But then what ends up happening is they get a really incredible return on investment, or what they like to consider a return on experience for their use of that mobile app.
And Contentstack has been recognised as I think it was in April 2019, as a Gartner Peer Insights Customer Choice for web content management. So that kind of recognition must make you feel incredibly proud that you're heading in the right direction. So can you tell me more about that award and what essentially it means to you guys over there?
For sure. Yeah. So the most flattering thing about this recognition is that it's driven by our customer base. Yeah. Customers are taking time out of their busy schedules. They're spending 20 to 30 minutes filling out this evaluation on Gartner's site to share their experience with using Contentstack. And that has resulted in making Contentstack the highest ranked product in the entire category. And this is really flattering from the perspective of, these are customers at really high profile brands with very important jobs, driving the most digital strategic initiatives inside the organization. And they believe that Contentstack is crucial to their success. And that's the most important thing about this recognition.
And I'd also just like to take you back in time for a few moments, because I think it's worth highlighting that you also founded and led Built.io through a recent acquisition by Software AG. So for other startup leaders listening and startup founders listening all over the world, is there any advice that you learned from that journey that you could maybe pass down?
Sure. Yeah. So I've taken kind of an unconventional path on my entrepreneurial journey, and I'm a female, and I'm a non-technical CEO, series of enterprise tech companies in Silicon Valley, which is not super typical of what you would find in Silicon Valley today. And through the acquisition of Built.io, I had completely bootstrapped the business, which is also very unique. And from there, we had learned how much value we had built in Contentstack. And I spun that out of my other profitable business, which was a consulting company. So even Contentstack was bootstrapped. And when we sold Built.io, I did that without a banker, which is also something that's very unconventional. So, my advice to other founders is that it's okay to sometimes take the road less traveled and maybe try to do things differently. You may find that you beat the odds and actually turn Silicon Valley on its head in the process.
Absolutely. Something else I hear a lot as well is, yes, take that unconventional route, but equally embrace serendipity, because when you take that unconventional route, that kind of happens along the way, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of the magic in it, is you have to, like, once in a while take a step back and look at the bigger picture. And one thing that we found, and this is also something that's pretty unique, is, we started a company that originally was a consulting company. We built it to profitability. We used that profit to invest in the products that we were super excited about. We ended up with a series of products that had product market fit and that the world really did need. And in that process, we found that we were sitting on a lot of value. And so by restructuring the company and spinning it into 3 companies and selling one, we were able to also create enough capital to be able to continue to do the things that we really love. And all of this was done in not necessarily intentional, but sort of as you learn things along the way, you start to find that there are different paths you can take, and you take a chance.
And I'm curious, did you face any challenges in a leadership role in the tech industry as a woman? Is there anything that you learned along the way there that you think would help other female leaders listening in tech too? I mean, did you encounter anything in particularly nasty, or any challenges that you don't feel other people would face?
Yeah, so this has been a big part of my journey, and actually one of my key goals is to help Silicon Valley become a level playing field. This is something I've been working on for 20 years at various stages of my journey. And I think there's a few things that really do stand out as real challenges and real problems, and backed with real data. One of those big ones is really just access to funds. And I talked about bootstrapping companies. I'm now fundraising for Contentstack, and I'm learning a lot in that process. And some of the stats that are a bit staggering is that males are 63% more likely to raise capital than women if all other things are equal. Everything else is the same. And that's just the reality. And research shows that 95% of venture deals, at least in Silicon Valley, and dollars are going to companies with not a single woman in the top management suite. And that's just, it's staggering to me, because there's, on the flip side, results that show that companies that do have females in the C-suite are performing significantly better than those that don't. And so that there's something broken there, and that's something that I strive to help fix over time. There's this subconscious bias that exists. We live in a society that's been trained to think about the capabilities of men and women differently over many, many years, and commercials and advertisements and things that you read, and in the way textbooks are written, all of that. And there's a lot of awareness now that this needs to change, and it's slowly changing, and you're starting to see really cool brands doing really cool ads to start to change that subconscious bias. But there are some organizations that are moving the needle on this and doing some things that are very actionable, and things like looking at your entire employee base and re-leveling to make sure that the people that are in certain senior positions are equal in terms of gender. Looking at salaries and making sure that if people are doing the same job, that they're being paid equally. Looking at candidates' resumes and maybe removing the names so there's no gender bias when you're doing resume screening. So a lot of those things are starting to also move the needle inside large organizations. And I generally just strive to help level the playing field. There's organizations at the youth level, like Girl Scouts that are trying to turn girls into leaders, and then organizations for entrepreneurs like Springboard that are working to turn women into CEOs. And so my advice is really to participate in all of that. And if you have money, invest in women. If you're part of an organization, demand equal pay. Join organizations like Springboard to help level the playing field.
I'm so glad you raised that. And I was also speaking with Jenny Thompson from Safety Pin Technology a few days ago, and she raised the exact same points around funding and challenge and those subconscious biases that we've mentioned. But she was saying when she was searching for funding, it was also women in senior positions that didn't take other women startup founders as seriously as well, which she found incredibly odd. Have you encountered anything like that?
That's a harder one to back with data. I mean, yeah. It's sort of one of those things that it's either a hunch, or not. And I think that comes back down to the subconscious bias point. It's, we may all have that because we've been built in this society that was built on that bias. And so it very well could exist. It's much harder to back up, but that's part of the game, is all of us working together to change the way that people think.
Absolutely. So looking forward then, what's next for Contentstack? Is there anything else you can share with us today about the road ahead?
Yeah, I mean, our vision is for Contentstack to become the content platform of record for every modern organization. And what this means is that Contentstack will become the only tool you have to use to do everything you care about, from delivering content to the web, mobile apps, smartwatches, jumbotrons, AR and VR as those become real, augmented reality, virtual reality, gaming consoles. And all of that should be done with the built-in AI and analytics and all the machine learning that you require to create compelling, engaging content for all of your audiences. That's the vision. We want to become the one source of truth for content in every organization.
Excellent. And before I let you go, could I just ask that you remind the listeners of where they can find you online, and also contact a member of your team if they do have any questions?
Sure. You can find us at contentstack.com. That's www.contentstack.com. You can follow us on Twitter at Contentstack. And you can reach us through the website at our contact us page. And our team has the ability to respond typically within seconds.
Well, before speaking to you today, I've heard a lot about artificial intelligence, and those big scary headlines all over the media will say it's going to replace content creation and put people out of work. But I actually look at it as from a completely different angle. And for me, it's more of a tool to repurpose content. For example, I'm seeing more and more people are creating a video and turning that video into a podcast. They then turn that podcast into a blog post, and then those series of blog posts can be turned into a book. So it's actually a tool to generate more content and actually help people rather than replace them. At least that's how I see it. So a big thank you for coming on and sharing that story with me today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
A big thank you to Neha for coming on and addressing how artificial intelligence is changing the content generation process, and how its capabilities, including those of natural language processing, NLP, and natural language generation, NLG, and how that can help accelerate the process of content generation. And I think it's so important that we talk about diversity and unconscious biases in the tech industry too. So I completely salute Neha for being such a passionate advocate for women in leadership. So hopefully AI will make my content better rather than just replace me. But I do think there's a few years in this old dog yet. So, as always, if anything from today's conversation struck a chord with you, if you want to ask me a few questions, if you want to come on the show or just say hello, email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. You can tweet me at Neil C. Hughes, and my website is techblogwriter.co.uk if you want to listen to more interviews or even just work with me. Whatever it is, I'm here to serve you, my loyal audience. And remember, you can also subscribe to this podcast on over 20 different channels now. I'll reel off a few of them now. We have Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Outcast, Player FM, Podbean. If there is a platform that you prefer to listen to on podcasts and I'm not on there, give me a shout because I'd love to get it added on there too. But right now, I'm going to channel my inner cowboy and say to the bartender, give me a whiskey in a dirty glass and get out of here. So thanks for listening as always. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.